We are winning, ladies and gentlemen. But we haven't won. And so we have to make sure that we don't get cocky.
You're listening to Hopium Radio.
I noticed that we have a lot more political representation this year, which is a wonderful, remarkable thing. We've reached the fight, the stage of the fight where, they go, oh, then they fight us. But it's actually, then they try to get us to love them. And what I want to say on that briefly, because I don't want to make this talk about all the politics there, is cast a vote, but don't join a cult. They are not our tribe. They are not your personality. They have their own interests, their own values, their own things they're chasing. Try to get what you need from them, but don't give yourself to them, even if you have to vote for them. Instead, what I want to do is set this frame a little different for this conversation. I want you to reflect on where we are, how we got here, and where we're headed. There's a passage from a book that I think for this crowd really resonates. It says, for in every country of the world, I believe, the avarice and injustice of princes and sovereign states, abusing the confidence of their subjects, have by degrees diminished the real quantity of metal value which had been originally contained in their coins. Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, written in the year 1776. We're not playing games with metals anymore. But if you look around, you can see that the problems from that kind of thinking are springing up everywhere. They're reaching us. They're choking us. And you see this in the internet as well. What is it that's wrong with the internet? The thing that's wrong with the internet is what's wrong with the world, because more and more they're one and the same. A system has been constructed around us, not just through administrations, but through generations, that is fundamentally unfair. What do I mean by that? Look at the economy, right? There's an increasing concentration of resources into fewer and fewer hands. So it is now even with the human voice. Winner take all is the model that's apparent on platforms as far as the eye can see. Whether you're talking about broadcast media, whether you're talking about legacy media, whether you're talking about newspapers, whether you're talking about social media, minority opinions are increasingly made to survive at the indulgence of the censor. They're clinging to the edge of the platform by their fingernails. You see truckers in Canada that are getting debanked, and you see students at Columbia are getting de-hired for the things that they express. Now, we don't have to agree with them. We shouldn't necessarily agree with them, but they should have the ability to argue. They should have the ability to persuade. They should have the ability to dissent. They should have the ability, frankly, to disrupt. That's the thing that makes us progress, right, is the disagreement. If we accept that the system that we inherited is the best that it can possibly be, it shouldn't change, shouldn't be contested, what we're saying is that we've gone far enough. This point in history is the best, and it's not. We know it's not. Life is still difficult despite the many privileges, despite the many technologies that have blessed us. But somebody made those things happen. Every good thing that you enjoy is the product of someone's labor, the product of someone's effort, the product of someone's ingenuity, the hours of their lives being gifted to us, to the common species. And the system that has been built around us is designed to extract as much of that as possible and return that to the hands of those princes. You'll notice none of the things that I mentioned are, deeply technical in nature. It's all very broad and general audience. But the thing that I want to warn you about tonight is that I fear that is about to change. Our lives have been increasingly intermediated by screens, by panes of glass, right? You are watching this either live on stage because you registered through a smartphone, through a laptop, right? Nobody went and sort of bought a ticket at the counter anymore. That's not how the world works these days. But in order to even set that computer up, to turn it on, to log in, to set up your account, to pull the smartphone out of the box, charge it, open it up, connect it to your Wi-Fi access point, you have to click OK to continue. You have to agree to somebody else's terms of service. You are made to pass through gates of permission that are owned and controlled by others, that do not answer, frankly, to anybody. You see Facebook, you see Google, you see how they've been abusing the trust of everyone in every country, right? You see the EU tries to get a handle on them. They're completely ignored. There was the GDPR, right, General Data Protection Regime, a regulation that was supposed to fix all of these problems, and it didn't work. They say, oh, we'll fine you, 4% of global revenue or whatever if you break the rules. That hasn't happened, and it's been years and years and years. Whether we're talking about governments, whether we're talking about corporations, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about the systemization of technologies that are designed to order our lives to the benefit of the institutions. They are trying to organize us to benefit them. In some cases, we want this. We want to be able to cooperate. We want to be able to collaborate. We need to be able to work together, right? But we have to agree to this in some way. We should need to. And it's not like click OK to continue or say no and use the phone my way, right? It's click OK to continue or you can't use your iPhone. You can't use your Android phone. It doesn't matter whether Samsung makes it, whether Google makes it, whether Apple makes it. You play by their rules or you don't play at all. And that should be changing. We'll get to it a little bit later where we are making great strides in the context of money, which is why suddenly we see a lot of political interest in these audiences. They understand that there is a new center of power that is rising. But there is a new field of vulnerability that applies to all of us, including all of these luminaries that will be speaking on stage here. And that is artificial intelligence, right? I am not one of the guys that goes on the internet and is like, oh, AI safety, the robots are going to kill us, you need to worry about this. I say, in fact, I want all of them to dump all of these models out on the internet where we can all use these. OpenAI, which is not open at all and is a very closed model company that wants to benefit themselves at your expense. They want to train on your data but benefit themselves. And they don't want you to have access under the covers. They don't want you to be able to pull down the models, distill it, get one you can run at home, put it on your phone, do whatever you want with it. They want you to have to go back to their watering hole, pay them rents, and to access all of this only through their ways, even if you did have the ability, technologically, hardware-wise, to run this at home. The good news is it is becoming easier and easier to get this stuff in public hands, to run this on home machines. I'm not just speaking rhetoric here. I've spent the last year using these models myself at home. You can do this too. Open source models, whether we're talking about diffusion models for generative imaging, right? Sort of what you think of like the Midjourney, the nice web interfaces. You can do that at home. It's 100% free as long as you've got the hardware to run it. And it's getting easier and easier to do this. Whether we're talking about large language models, Facebook, which again I've been throwing invective at from the beginning half of the talk, has actually been a force for good in this space. Not because they love you or they love us or they love me or anything like that, but because they're afraid their competitors, like OpenAI that I mentioned, are going to build a structure around them, ring-fence them in a little plot that they can then tax forever. And Facebook doesn't want to end up there, right? So they go, well, what we'll do is we'll develop tools and give them to everyone else so a monopoly can't form and be used against us. Self-interest more so than altruism, but I still applaud it, right? And I'm no fan of Mark Zuckerberg, but he's done wonderful things here. I hope he continues. I know it won't last forever, but for the moment, while it does, I'll welcome the help that we can get there. But why am I bringing this up, at a Bitcoin conference? Well, the reason why is that Bitcoin transactions are not private. All of you know this here in the general sense because it's 2024 and this is not, back in 2013 where we're saying, Bitcoin is perfectly anonymous and it's money for criminals and whatever. The only person who still believes that is Elizabeth Warren. The reality is that Bitcoin transactions are permanent, they are public, and they can be tracked and they can be linked. An enormous proportion of them are fully doxed, just not publicly doxed. And this is because how do people move in and off of sort of the Bitcoin network, any crypto chain really? And it's through the on and off ramps, right? Through these legacy exchanges that get licensed by whatever New York State or whatever country, whether it's in Dubai, whether it's in New York. And they are sharing the information en masse with what we politely refer to as regulators, but what are plainly described as great powers. Right? People are not really focused on sending this stuff to the government of Barbados. But if they're worried about catching an indictment from that government, they will send anything that government asks for to them, and then they'll say, is there anything else you need while we're at it? Well, there was still one saving grace, which was there were parts of that chain which were not fully identified and verified. You could have private transactions. You could send $5 for your buddy for pizza, as long as the on-chain transaction fees were low. Otherwise, you wait and save it up. But the idea here is that you could still engage in the network and presume that it would just age off eventually. It's out there, it's on the blockchain, somebody has it, maybe they'll prune it. But it's not you. It's not that everybody will know everything you did anywhere, all the time, forever. Because when they have your transaction history, they have your life history. They know what you read, what you buy, who you sent, who you support politically, like where your donations went. All of that is available to them. They can infer your thinking. They can infer your affiliations. At the NSA, we called the kind of information that was not the details of a conversation, right? Not literally reading like your texts, but simply saying that you texted someone. And this was under their interpretation. In my interpretation, it's a violation of the Constitution, but in their interpretation, this didn't impact the Fourth Amendment at all because it's not a search, because it's not reading your messages themselves. It's simply tracking the flow of messages. We called this kind of information metadata, right? And that metadata padded out what was your pattern of life. Metadata can be plainly described as activity records. It's the same kind of thing that a private investigator would get if they just followed you around all day. They don't sit behind you at the cafe and hear everything you say because you would wonder, who is this dude following me? But they sit outside in a car on the street. They see that you go in the cafe at this time. They see that you sit at a table with this other person. They send a guy to go, who is that person? What's his license plate? Who is he? They know that you met. They get the affiliation. They see you go to work. They see you go to the store afterwards. They don't see every item that you bought, but they see where you shop. And as you pad these things out more and more, you get a more and more complete picture of an entire human life without ever having to go, oh, we need a warrant for this. What held that back? Well, cost. You needed a human analyst to go and sift through this. The metadata could be collected automatically by ingesting the world's internet communications through these machines, right? But somebody still had to put their cup in the big bucket, pull it out, and lay it out on their desk and make sense of it. Machine learning models are going to change this. In my opinion, this is already being done. We simply don't have evidence of it yet. It's going to be testing, it's going to be development. We don't know how it's being applied, when it's going to be truly operational, but it is fantasy to imagine that they're not doing this. And there is zero regulation that I am aware of in the United States to prevent this. Nobody is thinking about what these agencies are doing. And we're not just talking about the NSA here, we're not just talking about the FBI, we're talking about the IRS, right? And it's not just the United States, it's every country. You may go, oh, I love the United States government doing this, I hope they spy on me as much as possible. Well, what about China? What about Russia? What about North Korea? What about Iran? What about every little government that you don't like, that you don't agree with, right? And suddenly they can have every life of every person, every day, at every moment, on a live feed being interpreted at machine speed. And then you start feeding that those inferences into a decision-making process. This is the reason that I bring up the protesters at Columbia University, the protesters in Canada. Right? It doesn't matter whether you're liberal, it doesn't matter whether you're conservative. If you stick out, if you stand out, you're going to become non-normative, or rather anomalous. What I am afraid is likely to happen quite quickly, right? Probably not this year. Within 3 years, it'll begin being done. I think at some scale, and within 5 to 10 years, it'll be done absolutely regularly, routinely. Is that they're going to take all of the transaction information that they can get. And this is going to start with big banks going on their own personal data sets. It's going to flow from there to people going, oh, where can we get this information publicly? Well, the Bitcoin blockchain is available for anyone for free at any time, right? And how do you train these models? You need learning sets. You need training data. You need data sets. So they're going to pull everything they can. They're going to feed it through these things. And they're going to try to teach them originally, I think it's going to be the easiest thing, what does a normal transaction look like? You know, what do 95% look like? And then they're just going to go, what is anomalous? What is strange? What is unusual? What doesn't quite fit? And then they're going to go from that's a 5% probability down to 3% probability, then try to get it smaller and smaller and smaller until they can just basically have people that are getting reports spit out on their desk, little, chat messages to their terminal, basically. They're saying, this just happened, this just happened, this just happened. Do you want to continue? And that banking officer is going to get a click OK to continue on your life, on your ability to transact, on your ability to trade. It's not just going to be Bitcoin. It's going to be Visa. It's going to be MasterCard. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be PayPal, right? Whether you're subscribing to an OnlyFans account or something like that, which, is a very common thing, but something that a lot of people aren't going to admit to. They're not going to be proud of, right? That's going to start making these institutions go, oh, do we want to continue our business association with these people? Is there a brand risk, on stage here? And I think we really need to think about how do we secure the transactions on the Bitcoin network moving forward. I have said this for 10 years. I have been ignored for 10 years. Well, we're running out of runway. And again, right now, every time you're on this network, and I love this network, I've used it many times, you are going to be adding to the data set. Even if they don't identify you because you're the, whatever, mystic cyber ninja that knows how to protect yourself, who is the counterparty that you're trading with? Are you sending it to your buddy? Are they doxxed, right? Are you sending it to a business that you're paying? Are they doxxed? And larger parts of this transaction mesh of this network, as they get identified, the space for everyone else to have any kind of private interaction diminishes. Now, you might go, well, these big businesses, Visa, MasterCard, yeah, they have the transaction history for everybody, everywhere, all the time. And you don't know what they're using it for. But they're not screwing you, right? Well, AT&T, it was revealed this year, lost all of their subscribers' information, or an enormous subscribers' information, for a block of time. I think it was something like 6 months. Where all of your text messages, all of your phone calls, all of the things that went through their routing network, including some cell site location information, which means which cell phone tower you were connected to, were stolen by hackers. They haven't said who they are. As far as I know, they may not have been identified yet. Maybe they'll never be identified. We don't know whether it's state-sponsored or whatever. Maybe there's been ongoing reporting since then. It's revealed it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody will be up there to tweet about it. But the bottom line is this, right? These enormous data sets are a liability. We know they cannot protect them. You cannot control them. And they can have enormous influence over our lives. All of these people who are coming up on stage and saying these wonderful things about how much they love Bitcoin, how much they love you, they're going to do all these wonderful things to make something better. The United States is the only advanced democracy on the planet that I am aware of that does not have a basic privacy law. We have the Fourth Amendment, right? That only binds the federal government. That doesn't do diddly squat to protect you against corporations. And the government, for 90% of their work, probably 95% of their work in intelligence nowadays, they simply go to corporations and ask them for information. It's an end run around the Constitution. And we have been able to suffer this, right? Again, the game is too good to leave. Not because we love it, but because we haven't had a choice. Well, we're running out of time to fix this, and the consequences of ignoring it are about to get a whole lot worse. Nobody sees it. This is not Terminator, right? This is not Skynet. This is not robots descending from the sky to drag you out of your home. That might come someday, but that's a long way off. We're talking about some things that are much more banal, but much easier to do. We talk about that concentration of power. These politicians, right? A lot of them probably don't love that they have to come up on this stage and give a dog and pony show to dance for the crowd that is suddenly much more powerful. Well, the people that they have always been answerable to are about to get a much tighter hold on the leash, not just of them, but of everyone. So I want to zoom back out because we've only got a limited time this evening. I say, look, the reason that the internet feels broken is because it is reflecting a broken world. It's reflecting the consequences of all of these winner-take-all dynamics. It is reflecting the boundless ambition of these generations of princes. And it has left us with an unfair system, which means an unstable system. Why do I think all of this AI stuff is likely? Well, the reason is that unfair systems produce dissatisfaction and therefore are hard to maintain. Well, the people who want to maintain them are those who benefit the most from them. In the current disequilibrium, they're the ones who have the most resources. They have the ability to influence the status quo the most. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep the top spinning for as long as possible without letting it fall over and someone having to write it in a new stage, right? Instead of staying in the same game, even if it's good, we don't want to leave it. We start a new round, right? We start a new game with new rules. The reality is we're not at the worst of it yet, but we are headed in that direction. It's clear to me. And I think if you look at, like, does this feel normal to you? When you look at the candidates, when you look at the dynamics, even the people on stage giving all the speeches, right? I'm not saying they're terrible, right, or not taking a position at all. But this is a little unusual. The fact that they're here is a little bit unusual. Things are changing, and they're changing more quickly all the time. We have passed the inflection point, and we are accelerating down the slope. And we're reaching the point where all of us are about to have to make very serious decisions about how we spend the rest of our lives to try to make the world better for our children and for those who come after us. Our economy, politics, even culture have reduced the access to an equal role. And that has produced resentment, grievance, that blossomed to the point that now every discussion feels like it is becoming an instrument for war by other means. And we are competing constantly, and we are cooperating rarely. And we need to change that. Because if you ask yourself, who is it that's competing, for all of the highly energized talk about like radicalism, increasing extremism, which is not wrong, it's unevenly distributed. I see very little in the way of like cutthroat competition and blood sport amongst the banks. As far as the average worker is concerned, whether we're talking about this election or any other in the last 20 years, a given election tends to result in what feels like a different uniform on the same cop. And that's a problem. Elections do have consequences. They do matter, right? There are differences. But sometimes it feels like they're less meaningful than they should be. And that is, I think, what we're all feeling. That is the seed of all of us. We are supposed to have our hands on the lever as a collective public, as the commons, right? And we still get to cast our votes, but it seems like our votes are not as meaningful as they want. Do you really believe that the two front runners are what the collective will of this country would choose as the two best Americans, right? When you were a child and you were in school, they're like, oh, the president's the best person. Does it feel like that? I don't think so. And so that leaves us with the questions to walk us out of this. The question that we're being confronted with every day: what are you going to do about it? The reality is not much, right? Right now, if you're the average person, you're going to post a mean tweet, about somebody you don't like, and then post a picture of yourself looking cool on Instagram, and then forget about it. You want to watch your shows, you want to go home, you want to be comfortable, you want to, get dinner, you want to go to bed. You've got a job to do, right? You've got rent to pay. We're all running on a treadmill. And then what? And for what? Right now, we're doing it for the likes. We're trying to get approval. We're trying to get acceptance. We are being driven to compete for attention and for acceptance. We need to start, instead of competing, we need to start cooperating, working together to find our way out of this hole that is not this election, it's not this politician, it's not this policy, it's this system. And that's what Adam Smith was telling us about the year 1776, a powerful year for every American. The internet is broken because institutions are competing against the individual, while the individual is competing against other individuals. We need to shatter that design, because competition is everywhere, but it's only against the powerless. We need to look back at the avarice of those princes. And I don't just mean in the context of government. I mean everywhere. I mean, Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan. We need to think about the systemic influences on our lives and how we can correct for them. The people who, throughout all history, had the means to diminish the amount of metals in our coins, which is inflation, simply by a different name. We're not using metal anymore. We're using paper now, but the game is the same. We in this room are using a technology that has taken the metal and the paper away from them. And it is through this single lever that they have set flourishing societies on the path to inevitable poverties. And I just want you to remember, every time you look at the grocery store's prices, that you are not alone, you are not isolated. Everyone in that store is dealing with the same battle that you are. We have to cooperate, we have to work together, and we have to make sure they do not reduce this country to the land of the free and the home of the slave. The only way we will do that is if we work together. So please, by all means, cast your vote, but don't join a cult. There's a lot of work to be done. Thank you.